On a November morning in 1095, two words forever altered the course of Christian history. As the sun rose over the French city of Claremont, no one could have predicted that the spontaneous cry of Deus Vult, God wills it, would not only ignite the Crusades, but also become one of the deepest mysteries of Catholic spirituality. Today, we will unveil the secrets guarded by these seemingly simple words, which carry centuries of faith, devotion, and spiritual power. Chapter 1. Meaning and Origin. In the vast expanse of medieval battlefields, a Latin phrase echoed like thunder, Deus Vult. Yet, few know that before it became a war cry, it originated in the quiet halls of monasteries, where monk scribes meticulously preserved sacred Latin texts, the Church's official language. The power of these two words lies in their absolute simplicity. Deus, the supreme creator, and vult, from the Latin verb volo, meaning to will or to desire. Together, they form a definitive statement. God wills it, a declaration imbued with divine authority in each syllable. The earliest documented mentions of this expression appear in 9th century ecclesiastical texts, where it was used to affirm important council decisions and papal decrees. It was common to find the phrase at the end of official documents as a seal of heavenly approval. Medieval scribes had a unique tradition when writing Deus Vult. They would inscribe the letters in gold or vivid red, setting them apart from the rest of the text. Some manuscripts feature the phrase adorned with angels and divine symbols, visually elevating it to match its spiritual significance. In ancient liturgy, Deus Vult was pronounced during crucial moments of the Mass, especially on martyrs' feast days. It served as a solemn reminder that the sacrifice of those saints was aligned with divine will, a tradition upheld until the Council of Trent. The expression became so important that bishops incorporated it into their crests and episcopal seals. One notable example is the seal of the Bishop of Claremont, who had later witnessed the historic moment when these words became a call to action that would change Christian history forever. Chapter 2. The Council of Claremont. In the heart of medieval France, in November 1095, the small city of Claremont witnessed one of the most extraordinary moments in Catholic history. Pope Urban II, after a long journey through the Alps, arrived to preside over a council that no one imagined would alter the destiny of Christendom. The scene was remarkable. Over 300 clergy gathered in the cathedral, while thousands of faithful crowded Claremont's narrow streets. Few records mention that the Pope strategically chose this city for its proximity to major Benedictine monasteries, ensuring swift dissemination of his message. On the 10th day of the council, something unexpected occurred. Breaking traditional protocol, the Pope decided to deliver his speech outdoors. A wooden platform was hastily erected, and contemporary accounts describe an exceptionally clear sky, as if heaven itself wanted to witness the event. The pontiff's words were charged with emotion as he described the plight of Christians in the East. He spoke of letters received from Constantinople, detailing the desecration of holy sites and the suffering of pilgrims. A contemporary account mentions that tears freely flowed down the faces of those present. It was then that a moment occurred which would turn the gathering into a historical milestone. As the Pope concluded his appeal for the liberation of Jerusalem, even before he finished his last sentence, a solitary voice in the crowd shouted, "Deus Vult." Like wildfire, the shout spread, and thousands of voices joined in an overwhelming chorus. The cardinal chronicler present noted that the echo of these words reverberated through the city's walls for nearly an hour. Church bells began to ring spontaneously, and according to reports, even those who did not understand Latin joined the clamor, recognizing in that moment the manifestation of something divine. This historical fervor has inspired many of our viewers to seek further spiritual insight, such as with the ebook 50 Saints, Stories and Prayers for Divine Intervention. Visit our store for more information. Chapter 3. Spiritual Dimension. In medieval Catholic theology, the notion of divine will transcended simple obedience. Great theologians of the era, such as Saint Bernard of Clairvaux, taught that recognizing God's will was like discovering a celestial map to the soul's salvation. Manuscripts from the Monte Cassino Library reveal a fascinating mystical interpretation of Deus Vult. Benedictine monks believed these words carried a specific spiritual frequency when uttered in deep prayer. They claimed it created a direct bridge between heaven and earth, akin to Moses on Mount Sinai. A lesser-known aspect of medieval spirituality was the practice of Deus Vult hours. In certain monasteries, monks gathered 3 times a day to meditate on divine will, using the phrase as a sacred mantra. This practice, preserved in ancient books of hours, shows how deeply the expression was woven into contemplative life. The spiritual dimension of Deus Vult found powerful biblical parallels. Medieval scholars traced a direct line from Mary's fiat to Abraham's calling, seeing in each great moment of sacred history an echo of total submission to divine will. This understanding turned a simple phrase into a portal for profound mystical experiences. Mystics of the time reported hearing these words pronounced by angelic voices during spiritual ecstasies. St. Hildegard of Bingen, in her visions, described Deus Vult as 2 golden flames intertwining in the air, symbolizing the perfect union between divine will and human response. Medieval scribes preserved a fascinating treatise on how the syllabic structure of Deus Vult reflected celestial harmony. They noted that the first word, Deus, rises like a prayer, while Vult descends like a divine response, creating a sound pattern that mirrored the dance between heaven and earth. Chapter 4. The Crusades and Faith. In the early morning hours of July 15, 1099, an extraordinary phenomenon was recorded in the skies over Jerusalem. Chroniclers described an intense red aurora, which the Crusaders interpreted as a divine sign. That same morning, the cry of Deus Vult echoed for the last time before the holy city was taken. The journey to Jerusalem was not just a military campaign, but an unparalleled armed pilgrimage. Crusaders carried sacred relics, and each camp transformed into a temporary church city. An intriguing detail: knights fasted for 3 days before every significant battle, following a special ritual of spiritual purification. Records from the Cluny scriptorium reveal that many crusaders sewed small parchments inscribed with Deus Vult onto their tunics, near the heart. These sacred words were believed to offer divine protection. Some of these amulets have survived to this day, preserved in European monasteries. The plenary indulgence granted to crusaders had a unique aspect seldom mentioned in history books. It extended to 7 generations of their family. This extraordinary promise motivated entire families to sell everything they owned to finance the journey of a single member to the Holy Land. The priests accompanying the Crusades developed a specific ritual called the Officium de Voluntatis, the office of God's will. This nightly ceremony allowed the warriors to renew their vows, reaffirming that each step of the journey was guided by divine will, not personal ambition. On the day of Jerusalem's conquest, a rare mystical moment occurred. As the Crusaders finally entered the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, witnesses reported a white dove circling above the altar, while the spontaneous chorus of Deus Vult rose from the exhausted voices of the warrior pilgrims, marking the fulfillment of a prophecy pronounced in Claremont. Chapter 5. Symbols and Traditions. Carved in stone, embroidered in silk, and engraved in gold, the motto Deus Vult transcended its vocal origin to become one of the most powerful symbols in Catholic heraldry. The most impressive of these symbols is found in a hidden stained glass window in Notre Dame Cathedral, visible only during the summer solstice, when sunlight reveals the golden letters through a precise play of light. In the Order of the Holy Sepulchre, a secret tradition persisted for centuries. Each new knight received a ring inscribed with DV inside. This ring was to be worn during morning prayers, pressed over the heart as a physical seal of spiritual commitment. Some of these rings have survived, their inscriptions worn smooth by generations of devout touch. Medieval illuminations reveal an intriguing pattern. Whenever Deus Vult appeared in a manuscript, it was accompanied by a specific drawing of 3 stars forming a triangle. Scholars recently discovered that these stars correspond to the real position of the constellations over Jerusalem on the night of its conquest. In the ancient tradition of cathedral builders, there was a peculiar ritual Before laying the cornerstone of a new church, the master mason inscribed Deus Vult on its base. This practice, begun at Cluny Abbey, spread throughout Europe, creating an invisible network of churches linked by this shared dedication. In Cistercian monasteries, a unique calligraphy style was developed for writing these sacred words. The letters were designed so that when folded in a specific pattern, they formed a perfect cross. This style, known as scriptum voluntatis, became so valued that only the most skilled scribes were permitted to reproduce it. One of the most enduring legacies is found in the bells of ancient European churches. Many were cast with the inscription Deus Vult inside, creating what medieval people called vox de, the voice of God. It was believed that the sound of these bells had a special power to ward off storms and bring divine protection to the community. Chapter 6. Theological Reflection. A preserved scroll in the Vatican Library contains a profound reflection by an anonymous 12th century monk. God's will is not a distant decree, but a constant whisper in our hearts. This understanding transformed Deus Vult from a simple war cry into an intimate invitation to communion with the divine. Catholic mystical tradition teaches that discerning God's will is like learning a celestial language. The great saints compared this process to a silent dialogue, where each soul finds its own way to listen to the divine voice. St. Augustine said that God's will was like a song that could only be heard by those who had learned to cultivate inner silence. A fascinating discovery in Dominican archives reveals that medieval preachers identified 3 levels of understanding in Deus Vult: the literal divine command, the moral our response in obedience, and the mystical the transformation of the soul that fully accepts God's will. This threefold interpretation offered a complete path of spiritual growth. Medieval theologians developed a contemplative practice called the ladder of divine will. It was a spiritual exercise guiding the faithful through 7 steps of discernment, each marked by a specific virtue. The final step, they said, was reached when one's own breathing became a constant prayer of Deus Vult. In Benedictine spirituality, a unique understanding of divine time emerged. They taught that every sincerely spoken Deus Vult created a fold in the veil between the temporal and the eternal, allowing grace to flow more freely. This notion profoundly influenced how monasteries structured their prayer life. The writings of St. Teresa de Avila bring a revolutionary perspective to these ancient words. She compared them to a key that unlocked not only the doors of heaven, but also the paths of self-discovery. When we say Deus Vult, she wrote, we are not merely acknowledging divine will, but discovering our true nature as children of God. The history of Deus Vult teaches us that the simplest words can bear the deepest meanings. As we have seen, this phrase transcended its historical moment to become an eternal treasure of Catholic spirituality. It reminds us that even today, we are called to discern and follow divine will in our lives. In times when many seek signs and direction, Deus Vult stands as a beacon of spiritual clarity, reminding us that God's will is not a distant mystery, but a call present in every heartbeat. If you wish to deepen your spiritual journey and explore more treasures of our rich Catholic tradition, I invite you to become a member of the Catholic Journey channel. As a member, you will have access to exclusive content, monthly spiritual formation live sessions, and our private prayer group. Help us keep the flame of faith and Catholic tradition alive. The link to join is in the description below. May God bless you and see you in the next video.